All right. Well, that was exciting. We just tried the 30-second countdown, and yeah, cool. So it's just me. Hi, I'm Ben Lustig. Jake will be joining momentarily. We had a little technical difficulty on his end with the internet connection, which is part of being a partnership that works remotely. But he will be here any minute. And we're excited to be back today. I think that, this experiment, as we've been talking about it, is really interesting because not only does it kind of keep us working on a new script with a bit of, I don't know, responsibility to all of you out there that may or may not be paying attention. But it also kind of gives insight to people on the way that we work. And I was talking to another writer friend of mine this morning about it, and he said that what's interesting is he knows how he does things, and it works for him. But you can always learn from the way someone else might do things, pick up a little thing here and there. And there he is. Oh, your connection
in the
is
flesh.
not really any better whatsoever.
I know we were dealing with. I'm dealing with upload and download speeds on my end. I'm hardwired into my internet provider, but it's only giving me about 17 megabits on the upload and 318 on the download, but 18 on the up. So I apologize to anyone watching who is saying, "Why is your face so blurry?" It's not normally how I look.
Thankfully, anyone who's just listening to this on the podcast won't see that.
This is true.
Which, let's just start real quick and let you know that we are both live on YouTube, live on Facebook, live on Twitch, and we will also be posting these videos after they are live. And we will have a podcast, and do have a podcast on Apple Podcasts as well, if you prefer to listen to us ramble instead of watch us ramble.
And likewise, if you've stumbled across this on Apple Podcast, you could actually see what our faces look like. Should you want to?
Yes, that's right.
Can't promise it's going to be pretty, but it does exist. We do have faces.
Yes, we will be continuing to work out the kinks of how this show is going to look and what our technical difficulties and everything. But I think for today, let's jump in because I'm excited because this is the way that cracking an idea tends to go with us. We will have a great conversation, throw out all these different things, and then we'll go away at night. Space is always good, I think, with writing. And then one of us will have this idea that starts to bring things together. Well, the scary part about that is coming back the next day and being excited about your idea, and then the risk that the other person actually hates it. And goes, I don't know. Now, I'm going to give a little hint here. So Jake and I
pause just for 1 second and just a brief recap of what we talked about yesterday.
Oh, that's probably a good idea. Yeah. All right, you're making me wait. Go.
Good. I know. I'm giving Ben massive blue balls here. So yesterday we came completely. I was going to say completely naked, but we're creatively naked. But not a blank page in front of us. Literally coming with no, pre-designed ideas, and coming up with our next spec screenplay. And we began to talk about in the early part of the session wanting to explore something modern day, and that being the parameter. Generally speaking, for us, me and Ben tend to write in the kind of period fantasy space. Our movie The Princess lives in that, and we want to have something that isn't that, I think, from a variety of reasons, partly budgetary, partly just because that's something we want to creatively explore. We also then, again, it sounds really super broad and perhaps silly, but wanted to go, the protagonist is a normal person. And by that we mean, when we meet them, perhaps has no particular set of given skills. And also, just kind of coming to this now, that any of these things can change. We're not attached to any particular idea. And I think that's so important to absolutely, at this stage of the process, be completely open and whatever it is that sparks that
Sometimes
creativity.
the idea that we talk about in these sessions may not be right for this script, but we'll keep those and go, oh yeah, that worked there, and maybe we can use that here. And I think that's a big thing that we've learned over the years. Is like, no, none of these ideas, even if we don't use them now, are bad.
Indeed.
You know?
And then the very last thing, the very last thing was that we had landed on this idea about what would it be? What's the story? We started to talk about demons in the mafia, and then we began to think about what is the story where the demon is actually the protagonist, or you subvert the tropes of what a demon is, and can they be somebody good? Anyway.
Yes. So that's a great setup for what I want to say. So
I'm
here we go. All right. So the two things that we were talking about kind of were in contradiction, right? You were like, let's make our hero normal, but then wait, our hero's a demon. Those two things don't necessarily go together. But we've talked a lot about the potential for either Midnight Run, or we referenced Terminator, or we referenced various things. So here's my little pitch to you, Jake. What if our protagonist is a normal person, or at least I'm going to use she for now. Sure. She thinks she is.
Yeah.
Okay. And yet she's not a singular protagonist, because on the other side we have a demon. Mm-hmm. And the demon is given the task to take our protagonist from point A to point B, and the reward being that demon will get to be mortal and one day have a soul. Mm-hmm. And during that kind of collaboration between the two of these characters, we discover, and this is something that we've talked about in the past, that our normal person isn't quite so normal. And maybe one idea is, are they the Antichrist without knowing it? Is there a specialness that maybe doesn't come to the surface, like, oh, you're super powered, but that they're needed by some force? And do you end up having multiple forces then coming after them to both stop the demon from bringing her to wherever she is, or to kill her for whatever purpose that is? So we kind of get a little bit of what we were wanting, which is this kind of demon wanting their soul idea, the play on the flip of the trope of the demon, and also getting a protagonist that is just a normal person.
Great, I really like that. I mean, it hits lots of things that we've kind of bounced back and forth about.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me a lot of various other stories.
Yeah.
And just so our audience knows, like, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Like, because Jake and I are very, we have entire days where we will literally just talk story ideas, and we'll come up with whatever stuff that works or doesn't work. But what's great about that is that there's always stuff in the well. And so when we come to a session like this, where we're trying to figure out what the next spec is, we can go, oh, remember that idea?
Yeah.
And could we insert what we want to do now into that idea?
Yeah, totally. And, you know, that's always a really good use of time.
Mm-hmm.
A really good use of time.
Yeah.
I'm reading a fabulous book at the moment. I've been quoting it occasionally on Twitter, and it's called The Wealthy Gardener, and it's become just a really interesting book. It's about wealth creation, but really it's actually far more than about wealth creation. It's about how do you use your life to its fullest potential. And anyway, one of the things that this character in this book talks about is seeking uncompressed time to think. And I think we do that when we go, we've finished our day's work at 2 or 3 o'clock. What should we do for the next couple of hours? Let's just spit out some ideas. And honestly, it just looks like this. It just looks like us shooting the shit. And honestly, sometimes it might be, I mean, literally the other week I came with I just seen The Goonies. And I came to Ben and was like, what's the movie about wishing wells?
I think you mentioned that yesterday also.
I did mention that. Yes, right. Yeah, totally. Yes. But it's just going to go I don't know what that is, but here's a concept. And play with it. Right. Anyway, point being, we do this all the time. Let's go back to this concept of the deep. Okay, so Azarath, the demon. He's one of the demons, one of the in the 7 circles of hell, and he is approached by. I liked what you came up with yesterday. He's approached by an angel who normally cannot appear in human affairs. Perhaps make that a
right. Yeah, sure.
And says, "Hey, Azarath." That's his name now. His name's Azarath. You're welcome. I know what you want. And he's like, what do I want? He's like, you want a soul. You would like nothing more than to be able to perhaps become human and perhaps die. Mortality. I like the flip on this concept of
not seeking immortality.
Not seeking immortality, but ultimately seeking an end. And again, we've talked at various points about immortals and ultimately like what might you want. Most of all, you might want to end life.
Right.
Forever. Right. So comes to Azarath and says, I can give you this, but what you have to do is you have to get this woman here from a diner in New York to Seattle.
Sure.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere like that. Somewhere that feels like that.
And either for her safety,
yes,
or for her, or what we could learn is actually there could be a nice twist where we think that Azarath's job is to save this person, but then we actually realize that it's about sacrificing them and that actually they're like some cool
and that's
thing.
what I think you do. I think you need to infuse it with twists.
Right.
You know, at first it's like, why don't know? Perhaps I don't even know why I'm doing this, or like Angel Gabriel's like super cryptic about it. You know, it's just part.
And of course, our hero, the person that we're relating to, the human on this quest, doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
Yes.
And is really out of sorts in a I'll use Sarah Connor as that trope of going, wait a minute, there are people after me, there are people trying to kill me, what's going on, who are you, you're a what, you're a demon. Like there's all kinds of, I think, fun things that we can have with that as we go on.
Why is a demon helping me?
You know, maybe the demon knows but doesn't want to tell her because it might freak her out. Like if they figure these things out. You know, another idea I was having is, is there an aspect of the other demons from hell or another demon from hell wanting to also stop our demon? Like, who are the antagonists in this that are trying to stop this
and why
quest from happening and why? I mean, that's going to be obviously the next step of our normal creative process, right? Is first we got to lock in on the giant macro, and then we slowly build down into the smaller and smaller details.
Layers of an onion, Ben.
Layers of an onion. Yeah. I do want to take one step backwards as Jake thinks about this brilliant pitch I've just pitched him, and just tell everyone again exactly what it is that we're doing. Jake and I have decided to take the extraordinary step of writing a script from scratch live, which is probably insanity, but we're going to do it. It's going to be fun. You're all going to be the fly on the wall or the person in the writer's room watching us hit our heads against the wall or try and figure out what that next block is. But that's great, and we're excited by it. A couple of things. One, feel free to leave comments. We would prefer and we ask that we don't leave creative ideas to keep that clean, but we would love your feedback on this experiment, and we would love to answer any questions that you may have. It doesn't have to be related to the story that we're telling. Part of our desire behind doing this is also to kind of pass along and help any aspiring screenwriters with the knowledge that we have. So by all means, ask away. And that is I'm now going to shift back to what we were talking about.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because and we've talked about the simplicity of Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about Terminator a little bit yesterday. And if you were to say, for example, that it's Terminator meets Midnight Run with a demon, I go, oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Because
what is
both
the
of those movies are really simple movies.
Yes.
I remember when we rewatched Terminator a couple of years ago, like, it's just a really simple movie. It's a chase movie.
Great. Yeah.
And it's great and it's simple and it's so great. It's just great.
Yeah.
The word is great. I have big
the word
great.
is great.
And again, something like Midnight Run, although comedic, again, very, very simple.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro has to get, I forget the name of the actor, passed away a couple of years ago, and that's awful of me. From New York to LA. Yes, I know. Yeah.
James Caan, is it?
Was that?
Not James Caan.
No, it's not James Caan. No. But anyway, very, very, very simple concept for the movie. And then people are trying to stop them along the way.
Right. And I think what would make this kind of that combination that you're talking about is, one, you have it's really interesting actually, is your Kyle Reese character is a demon. So that's really
and not an angel, because an angel's obvious.
An angel, a demon.
Kyle Reese in that movie is like, I mean, honestly, it's almost like Terminator 2 in that respect.
That's what I was thinking. Yes, it's very much like Terminator 2, only with the Sarah Connor, who is actually from Terminator 1.
Yeah.
And then the Midnight Run element of it is, it's not just one Terminator coming after them. It's different people for different reasons.
Like in Midnight Run.
Correct. And there is a specific goal of where to go. So the one thing about Terminator that always kind of bugged me, but it just is what it is Kyle, his mission is to keep Sarah alive. But we never understand how the fuck he's going to do that. Like, they're on the run. To where? Yeah. What is his plan? Oh, my plan isn't to kill the Terminator because I believe that the Terminator can't be killed. So what am I just going to take you up into the woods and hide you? There's never
there's no definite I hear that. And I think that movie succeeds though, because it's a chase movie. The tension is always present of like, it's right there.
It totally succeeds.
Right behind you.
But how much better would it have been if you knew that Kyle needed to get Sarah to a person who in the future they know could keep her safe and raise her to be the mother of the leader of the valley.
Yeah, like, you didn't know. It's interesting, isn't it? It's tough, isn't it? Because you didn't know what victory looked like. That wasn't just she's alive. Because and he says the Terminator cannot be killed.
Right. So victory wasn't, okay, we have to kill the Terminator, which at least in Terminator 2, in a way, that's kind of what it became, right? It's we have to stop Dyson.
Right.
Like victory had
they go up, there's a moment when they go on the offensive.
Right. And you like that. You go, okay, now I know. I know what we're doing. We're not just running. Yes, we have this crazy obstacle coming our way, but I know what winning looks like. Yeah. So I think that's what this movie would have as well, and we'd have to come up with exactly what that winning was.
I like the concept that there is. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, and it's based on what you're just riffing on what you were talking about with what winning looks like and an emotional change in Azeroth. So.
And it could be flip-flop, by the way. Female demon, male protagonist. We could do that as well.
That's interesting.
In fact, that might be really fun. Yeah. Like, I'd be totally down with that. You get like, all right, imagine the guy is, it's Paul Rudd and like Charlize Theron.
Oh, that's interesting too.
Right?
That's interesting too. Well, but where I was going to go with it was this. Was you've got to get Sam Connor to Seattle on Friday the 13th. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. I won't ask any questions and whatever. And I'm going to do it. There's a moment where he suddenly goes, oh, hang on a minute. He has this, he starts to bond, or she starts to bond with Sam. Right. And whatever her own personal growth journey is going to be about, is going to be expressed through that relationship.
Yes,
totally. Whether that's opinions about mankind or whatever.
Maybe there's something interesting about going into like, why do you want a soul?
Totally.
Like maybe they think they want it for one reason, but really it turns out that it's not what they thought all along.
Right. They get to Seattle only to discover the reason that they wanted Sam there on this day is because, yes, he's actually the Antichrist and God's going to kill him.
Right. Something like, yes.
Something like that.
Or either God's going to kill him or hell is going to bring them back and they're going to turn. And there's a movie that we've talked about. We had an idea once where it was somewhat similar to this.
Yeah.
Is there a clock as well? Because another demon is going to actually bring that, like they're actually going to become the Antichrist. It's like, Gozer is actually going to come here. Like, is there some sort of a, like, if we don't get them there by this point, they're going to do this. But if we do get them there, then this person's going to die. And do we have to find out the answer to both problems?
And that the stakes can be set up at the beginning, and then discover that those stakes, that everyone was misled.
Ooh, what's really cool? All right, so this is a movie where both of our heroes have personal stakes, right? And yet there's world stakes, but we don't have to necessarily know what that means.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they get the Antichrist. What does that mean? We don't know. We know it's bad, but really the movie is about their personal stakes. Her survival, because they're trying to kill me, or his survival if it's a guy.
Yeah.
And then her needing to kind of understand and get this soul that she's been wanting for millennia. And so these personal stakes, they have to kind of work together to do that. And yet there's this bigger thing above them that I don't think as an audience, really, like, I don't think there's a lot of explanation that needs to go in there.
Yeah.
In fact, I could see a piece of dialogue where someone goes, okay, so what are you saying? Like, I'm the Antichrist. Like, what does that even mean? And like the demon goes, honestly, there's never been one before. So I don't know.
Okay, I had an idea just popped into my mind, which was, and again, maybe this doesn't work, but I just float it out there. Sam's going to get killed. Sam's going to get sacrificed at the end. We, learn this in the darkest moment.
Yeah, I like Sam, by the way. Let's go with Sam.
It's going on the pad. And Azarath. Anyway, Azarath's been promised a soul. Get Sam from A to B. And at some point we learn the soul that you're going to have is Sam's. And that Sam has to die in order. And it's like, and then it puts ultimately the whole thing is like, can she do this? Does she even want this? Ultimately, I feel like there needs to be this story of redemption for this demon. And I think ultimately that's what the interesting.
I don't mind. I like the redemption. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm into it being Sam's, because it's something that feels like then it wouldn't be hers. And I understand that, like, we could kind of go into some metaphysical stuff there, but I kind of want her to have her own soul. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. No, I hear. I mean, ultimately, it comes to like,
maybe we say that means if she takes a soul, that means a child, like a baby, won't be born with, like a baby will die, or like something that, like, a soul was supposed to come to Earth, and you're going to be taking that soul. And maybe it's about learning about humanity in a way that she's never understood. In that sense. But then at the same time, I kind of go, well, I don't know, I'm flip-flopped. Either it's cool to end the movie where she gets a soul, or it's actually really cool to end the movie whereby maybe she doesn't have a real soul, but she's still a good person.
That's it. Or you do a thing, and again, this comes to an idea we talked about that dealt with demonology and a certain saint.
Right.
But whereby Azarath doesn't do what Gabriel told her to do. At the end says no, but because she did the right thing, she's been granted a soul. Almost like you had, and again, you see variations of this in kind of God and demon-y type things. The angel that gave Azarath this mission was doing so not at God's behest, but his own.
Right.
He was behaving in a way that perhaps God might not approve of. You know,
he's actually interfering when he's not supposed to.
Yes.
He's like walking the line, right? He's saying, well, I can't interfere. And you're going, well, aren't you interfering?
You want to have a moment where perhaps at the end, you know, Gabriel gets sent to hell. Maybe. And you realize that this person who I thought was the good guy at the beginning. And ultimately it's flipping on all of those things. Yeah. Here is a demon who becomes good. Here is an angel who was actually behaving not in a great way. Right. I think we've seen elements of that in movies.
The Antichrist is actually a sweet guy without power.
He's a high school teacher.
Like,
you know,
how do we kind of create like, oh, these are all ideas and concepts that people know and they talk about and have had in other movies and other television shows, but they've never been done in this way.
Right.
You know, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to let's bring up a document, and at least start to put down some of these ideas. Because I think this is kind of, again, this is our process as we start to formulate where we're going to go with the script. We usually start with a
scratch pad,
with a scratch pad, where we start to kind of list our big ideas. One, because sometimes it's good to look at them on paper, but then two, because we tend to forget them if we don't write them down. So I'm going to see if I can make this happen.
Can we make this part work?
1 second here. So we've got this going on, and then I'm going to share my document here, which is going to be super fun. Let's share a window. Oh yes, here we go.
It's a beautiful thing happening right now. Obviously, the people listening to us over on a podcast will be able to see this. Again, you can check out what our document looks like on the YouTube live stream. Yeah. But it's just a Pages document. Nothing special.
Nothing special. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
It will be special. This is the first moment of a screenplay. So,
yes, the blank page.
Tentatively, we're gonna come up with the Terminator.
Yes.
Terminator with a demon.
It's interesting. I can't see text. Maybe it's just taking a moment on my screen.
You know, it's not going to show it because it's it was the file name that I was.
Oh, there you go. Oh, yes, I see. Sure.
Now you can see.
Now I can see it. Okay.
Terminator meets Midnight Run, but with a demon and the Antichrist.
Yeah,
it's fun.
And so, you know, just revisiting what we were talking about yesterday.
Right.
There are 4 concepts being presented right here, and if you know all of those concepts, you actually get the shape. You actually get a shape of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Your Terminator, okay, cool, got that. Meets Midnight Run, okay, so it's a bit of a traveling element, perhaps a bit more of a traveling element, but with a demon, okay. So is the demon what's that and the Antichrist? I go, okay, there are concepts there that I don't need to explain,
right?
And it's a big and bold idea.
Yeah,
so in that sense,
so. I haven't seen this movie before. Not that I can think of.
Yeah.
If you have, by all means, leave a comment.
Let us know.
So that we don't go down the wrong path and waste everyone's time. But I don't think I've seen this movie before. So let's just lay out real quick who we're talking about here. So our human protagonist is a man, someone like maybe a Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
We love Paul Rudd.
And by that we mean a sweet, affable, not overly attitudey, not filled with conflict. Like there's something nice about him. He feels like an everyman in that sense.
Not conflict driven. Yeah. And not prepared for this adventure.
Absolutely, and I think that's so core to it, isn't it? It's so core
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Is someone entirely unprepared for it.
Our demon, or is it how do we want to?
I mean,
Damon.
I love spelling it the old archaic way. I'm a big Warhammer fan, so I'm all
Our
about
Damon is a female ancient being who has desired a reprieve from a life in hell and wants mortality, which includes a soul and the chance to one day go to heaven.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Then, so those are.
Then it's going to be, getting Sam.
Right.
Getting our protagonist, who will temporarily call Sam.
Yes.
So definitely called Sam.
So let me is a man, Sam.
Yeah.
And our demon. I don't like Azarath for
whatever. It's
cooler when it was a guy. We could call her. What's a cool girl name?
What's a cool girl name? Well, we leave her unnamed for the moment, but yeah.
Yeah, but come up with a temporary name. We'll call her Charlize.
Right. Fine. It has a demonic quality to it.
Yeah. So basically, Sam must survive.
Yes.
While Charlize
transports him from A to B, but that should be distance.
A to B,
I liked
maybe across the country.
I really liked again in Midnight Run the variety of transport they used.
Yeah,
and I wonder
the reason there's no airplane though.
There are opportunities for set pieces in these different places and what that ever looks
Definitely.
like. I mean, ultimately it's like, what's the chase sequence on a Lime scooter? I'm joking, but what is the obviously we're just seeing we've just had Bullet Train, but what's the fun thing you can do with a demon and a guy on a train? What's the fun thing you can do on a plane? What's the fun thing you can do on an automobile? But
let's just list all the things.
All vehicles.
On a boat.
On a boat. It's really funny. We had some people staying at a house of ours the other day who rented a moving truck. They brought a moving truck, and we were like, "Why is there a moving truck outside the house?" They said it's cheaper to rent a moving truck than it is to rent a car. And I was like, I never thought about that before. And apparently, it's what a bunch of people do. If it's too expensive to rent a car, they'll rent a moving truck. But what's the fun sequence? What's coming to mind? I always love the sequence in Inner Space when he's in the back of the truck. There's just something fun about trucks. Chase sequence on a truck.
Yeah. Interesting. So this is like our broad, this is still very, very conceptual.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think we've landed amazingly in an hour and a half, really. We've landed on an idea that I think is a movie. I think it's high concept. It's pretty easy to understand. I think it's commercial. Yeah. There's an opportunity for movie star roles, which is always important.
Absolutely.
And I think you can do it on a budget. And I think it, and very much so, it also fits our brand.
Yes.
And it's modern day. Yeah. And it's a human that is just a guy. So
yeah. See you at the wrap party.
I think we met all our criteria, Jake. Maybe the pressure of doing this live actually helped it. This does not always happen this fast. I just want to be very clear.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can take weeks.
Yeah. And also, there are elements in this story that are elements that we've talked about for other things for a while. Yes. And again, we're not coming to it with this idea already, genuinely. And I think and I hope that comes across. Yeah. I think we'd be much more professional about it if it was.
Right. No.
But as Ben was saying earlier, all those things feed your creative psyche and your creative consciousness, so that when you are ready and willing to open that book of your soul,
Right.
you go, oh, there's fertile soil that I've already put manure into a few months ago that is now there. And I'm a big believer in that kind of unconscious mind that is constantly being fed. And
So one of the things that we usually do, Jake, is at this point, actually, and it's a good point. So we have this broad idea. We know what, from a 30,000 foot view, we know what the movie kind of is. There's what we do, and we do this pretty much with every project, is then we go and we say, what are the comps? What should we do? And this is kind of our research phase. And I do think it's an important part, because before or during, and I think for us it'll probably be during, because we'll keep showing up and we won't have watched all of these movies or TV shows. But during this initial process, while we're constructing the characters, while we're figuring out our act structure, while we're figuring out our set pieces, we always like to watch things that are in this space for a couple of reasons. We like to see what worked. We like to see what didn't work. And we don't want to copy.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not,
That's not about attention.
Yeah. It's not about copying those things, but it is, and I think you said it earlier, it's feeding this well. It's like we would have to watch Terminator. Oh no.
Yeah. Oh no, again. But let's do that. And hey, I again, I think we're down to maybe only one person that's watching right now. But if
hello, one person.
If you've been watching and you have any suggestions as to movies that we might want to watch,
and while this video is up over the next.
Oh yeah, please leave them in the comments.
We are broadcasting this on September the 13th, 2022. Yeah. So if you see this and you're within a few days of it, please feel free in the comments to add any movies you think we should watch. So the Terminator, Midnight Run. Obviously, these are the two things that we are.
Midnight Run. Yes, I think that. Actually, because it's of the space, I think we need to watch Constantine again.
Yeah, that's good.
Because there are some, even though it's totally different plot-wise, there are some aspects of Angels and Demons that we
absolutely. Legion,
yeah, also one that deals with.
What's the one with Christopher Walken, where he plays?
Oh,
Prophecy. Is it Prophecy?
I think so.
Is that a good one to watch?
I don't know. I can't remember. I haven't. It's such an old movie.
It's such an old movie, isn't it? Yeah. Let's have a little look. I
think that it'd be good to watch movies that have these kind of.
No, it's not.
Pair-ups of unsuspecting. Actually, Old Guard is not a bad one either, because
not bad.
At least for a small section, you have this girl who doesn't understand what's happened to her. Probably doesn't work for a lot of it, but sometimes you just watch a movie for one storyline or one character and go, oh yeah, that's how they did that, and that made me emotionally connected to them.
It's The Prophecy.
The Prophecy, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember what it's about. So
yes, Angels and Demons, basically.
Right.
Right. Two angels fall to earth. Simon briefly enters Thomas's home and warns him of the coming of Uziel. Yeah, it's
okay. Cool. So we'll watch that.
Yeah.
What's another traveling action movie like this with?
What are good chase movies?
I think that it's a good question.
Have a look. Let's Google it. Chase movies.
Yeah. By the way, Google is your best friend, writer.
So the first one that comes up is it's fantastic. Is actually Mad Max, but it feels like that's a constant drivey, you know, like you never really let up in that. I just wonder if that's...
It's not going to be anything in this movie that's really going to
Yeah.
Mad Max.
Yeah.
What do we think the tone of this movie is? I know I'm jumping, but it might help with the research list.
I mean,
I feel right now that it's dark, that it's action-packed.
Yeah, I do.
I think that our human protagonist is going to add some levity, but not comedy.
Yes, and I think that's it. I think there should be moments of, and one of the things that we found when we finally saw the first screening of our movie, The Princess, was how funny Kit, the director, had made it, and how much humor had been added into it. That was not originally in our draft, and you know, it was interesting because it punctuated those moments of high tension with humor. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's actually moments of great humor, moments in something like Terminator 2.
Oh yeah,
you know,
totally.
And you remember those moments,
but they're not high comedy.
But they're not.
You would never call that movie a comedy ever,
in a million
ever,
years.
And I think that's what I mean. Yeah.
But you know, hasta la vista, baby. Is funny, and then it comes back at the end, and you're like, oh yes.
Yeah, the opening where he goes to get the fucking the clothes.
Totally. What's your clothes and your motorcycle? You know.
Totally. Yeah. Yes. No. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that tone. I mean, are we going to go R-rated with this? I don't think it has to be.
It's a good question. It's a good. I don't think we have to.
Maybe we don't decide that just yet and see how the. It's definitely a hard PG-13 if it's not R.
What was Constantine? Was that an R-rated?
Oh, good question. I don't know.
It was, yeah.
Probably.
That's an R.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you in the UK, that means 18.
Right. I think that we're probably going. It's going to be somewhere, you know.
It's going to be a hard PG-13 or an
R and PG-13, but also like from a tone perspective, it's going to have. I think it's mainly like an action drama with humor. So like, what's a good, with light humor? I mean, I think Terminator 2, interestingly, is a really interesting tone. Yeah. I think it's probably more Terminator 2 than the first Terminator from a tone perspective.
Sure, the first one is very, very serious.
Yeah,
very serious, and it's interesting. Like, observing like. Yeah, I think it's interesting.
There's no humor in the first one at all.
No.
I can't think of one joke. And actually, the humor in the second one, I think, opens it to a larger audience.
It didn't feel like a horror movie, whereas the first one almost feels like a horror movie, in one sense. Not fully, but it has that kind of quality to it.
It's a thriller. It's an action thriller.
Sure.
Versus the second one is definitely an
action film,
an action adventure movie. It's sci-fi. Yeah, totally. Wondering. Oh, we got 5 people watching us right now.
Hello, 5 people,
guys and gals. So, all right. So we've got a bit of a research list here, and that's really great. I would love to add more to it, but we can keep adding. If there's any TV shows that we want to watch as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And so again, so the purpose of this is just to, as you're saying, it's not to steal from these films. It's to kind of learn
from them.
Yeah. I think get connected to tone. But honestly, that's 3 nights of movie watching each, and we tend to not watch the same ones unless there's something that we really think that the other person needs to see. So, for example, tonight Ben might watch The Terminator, I might watch Midnight Run, and we'll come back tomorrow with what we've learned and what we took away from those movies.
And that'll actually be really great to talk about tomorrow.
It will be. It will be. So we'll probably have that be the focus of tomorrow's live stream.
I like that. I like that, Jake. I feel like what would we normally do? Oh wait, we've got some so a cousin of mine, Shelley, has commented actually.
Right.
Michelle. So thank you for watching. Yay. I think that the next thing that we would do on top of the research side of all of this would be to really start macro and go,
yeah,
what is our Act 1, Act 2, Act 3? And
well, I want to add as well. I want to add just something before we do that as well.
Yeah, sure.
Which is thinking about the thematic ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not 100% sure what that is that I want to explore with this. But there's something,
you know, it's interesting. Sometimes those don't come until later.
You. Totally.
And I think they tend to come out of character.
That's why I'm thinking. Yeah. I'm thinking about her. I'm thinking about him. And what are the journeys that I want to explore and the lessons that these people, these characters are going to learn along the way. And then that tends to inform theme.
And I think that's really important. We spend, and we will be spending on this podcast, a lot of time talking about character. And even if it's not stuff that ever makes it into the movie, it will ultimately be things that we try and build deep beneath the surface so that we understand who these people are, where they're coming from, and all of that stuff. We don't usually write character bios. It's not our thing. We tend to talk through it and maybe make notes or sketch pads more so than bios. You know, what's funny is The Princess is an interesting example of where some people, especially critics for whatever reason, found that the fact that we didn't give her a name meant that we didn't understand who she was. Now, a lot of things go into this, and we could spend an entire podcast, and maybe we'll do a separate one about the process of actually selling a movie and getting a movie made and what that means. Maybe we'll take a break from the actual writing thing one day and just do that. But the truth is, regardless of all the changes that were made to her character or the moments that changed throughout the development process, we actually never gave her name for a very specific reason. It was absolutely thought through, and it was 100% thematic, and it wasn't a lack of understanding of her character. It was an understanding deeply of the person that we were trying to convey and the idea that we wanted to convey through that person. And also there was a bit of a gimmick to it, which we found fun. I mean, I think it was, you know, and that's okay. But really, you know, I think that going into these characters and understanding the thematic ideas presenting through them will be really important.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
You know, so I just want to quickly talk, and I know we've got about 10 minutes left before we're in this session, because by the way, we'd like to not go over an hour, really, just for you guys, unless people start to comment and say, no, write longer.
I want to sit in on 8 hours.
No,
8 hours of this.
You know, the funny thing is, and people ask us all the time about our process, Jake and I, and that's part of why we're doing this. But one of the things that involves our process is we actually have always treated screenwriting very much as a job. Even when we were both working 2 or 3 support jobs, we would make a schedule and we would stick to it. And luckily for us, since 2014, we've been able to afford to quit those jobs and go to a 9 to 5 schedule. And it's really
interesting. Yeah. I going back to this book, The Wealthy Gardener, it really talks about the importance of having a schedule. And I think that is one of the best things that you can ever do for yourself, actually, in life, because it ultimately sometimes it feels like we don't have enough time to do everything that we want to do. But the reality is you have as much time as Einstein and Mother Teresa and George Washington and Winston Churchill. Like, we've lived with 24 hours in our clock for, since forever. And really, it's about, are you using your time?
Yeah.
Are you using your time? So me and Ben get on every morning at 9 a.m. and we work through till 12:30. We have lunch for an hour and 15 minutes. Hour and 15 minutes. That's a hangover from when we used to have to travel to each other's houses.
It had to do with travel time, but I'm used to it now.
But we've kept it, and then we work an afternoon session till 5:30. Yeah. And that time is sacred time. My family knows not to come and disturb me, although it does happen briefly, as happened during yesterday's podcast. Right. But that is like, I'm at work. And I think when you do that for yourself, you know what you're meant to be doing during that time.
Right.
And if you need to write it into your calendar, write it into your calendar.
And I don't think you have to be religious about it. I mean, Jake and I, you and I, we have conflicts all the time, and we talk to each other, and we say, "Hey, I'm running 10 minutes late this morning because I was dropping my daughter off at school, and it took longer." But
we're not religious with each other. But like, for example, I know that like I have a very set schedule that I do in the morning at the moment, and I really stick to that schedule. So like in terms of myself, I am religious in myself about knowing that I need to be available regardless of whether or not there are conflicts or not, but that normally from 9 until, absolutely right. It's not, it's one of the great things about being self-employed. Yes. The hours are great, but the boss is an asshole.
Yeah. You haven't noticed yet, I'm the boss. No, I'm just kidding. So back to also the process of things and talking about kind of the next step that we would normally do. Obviously, we talked about the research and watching movies and filling that well. And then we normally talk about big turning points for the movie, our 3-act structure, if you will. We don't stick to any sort of defined rules about a 3-act structure. We have what works for us. Yeah. And we usually start that way. But I at least am a believer that it's important to know the rules, but not be beholden to the rules.
And again, even calling it's not even knowing a rule, is it? It's about like being aware of a paradigm,
Yeah. People expect, and people will ask you, and that's the thing.
They will.
You'll go into a meeting or you'll have a notes call and they'll go, "So what's the darkest moment?" Or they'll use the term "the dark night of the soul." Or they'll use the term,
what's the midpoint? A lot of that stuff comes from Save the Cat, which
or all the other
ones. Totally, I feel like
the whatchamacallit, the hero's journey and all that stuff. Totally. And I think that knowing how to identify those places is good, and it also does help with story structure to make sure that you have a continuing arc. But really quickly, like, I think what we do is we actually look at a screenplay in 4 sections and not 3. Even though it's 3 acts, it's 4 sections.
Jake, and that sometimes we even break those down again into 8. But 4 is how we talk about it broadly.
Yeah.
Act 1, 2.1, 2.2, and then 3.
And at this stage, since all we literally have is an idea and 2 characters, we might only talk about Act 1, the midpoint turn of the movie, the end of Act 2, and the resolution. That feels like the biggest macro level of the arc of the story that we would probably start from.
And in terms of action, which of course we write action-y movies that have set pieces and things like that, we will start to kind of go, well, there should be one here, there'll be one there, And again, for this kind of movie, I think we're probably looking at 4 or 5.
Set pieces, like action.
1 in Act 1, 3 in over 2.1 and 2.2, and then 1 toward the end.
Yeah, again, it depends on
probably another one as well.
Set pieces are going to be your most expensive things, probably.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't speak Hollywood jargon, a set piece is essentially an expensive scene.
Yes. Yes. Totally.
Um,
Yeah.
So, and usually in an action movie, it means an action sequence.
Yeah.
And
And really, those become your trailer moments as well.
yeah, trailer moments.
You know.
We were in a room once with I want to say it was one of the executives that work on the Fast and the Furious movies, and he said that they literally, and I wasn't surprised by this, they literally build out those movies based around their set pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And in those movies, they actually only have 4 because they're usually huge,
Right.
and
Right.
it will literally be. They will decide on what are their 4 big set pieces, and then they will construct the rest of the movie around that. That's not the way that we work, but it has made us think about, well, if Fast and the Furious only has 4 set pieces, maybe we only need 4 set pieces too,
Sure.
unless it's really required. I think what we look for, even if it's not a big set piece, though, is the turning points. And sometimes those will be a set piece, and sometimes it'll be a smaller. Maybe it is an action beat because it's an action movie, but maybe it's a smaller one.
Totally.
Yeah.
And something that we've been talking a little bit about lately is sometimes it feels like the movie can pause while there's a set piece, but ultimately it's what is the thing that comes out of it, or how is that born out of character? How does the set piece become an expression of character, of internal and external conflict? But really, the story starts when the set piece is resolved. Did you win and get away, or were you captured? Did you lose something? Did you lose someone? Like, those become the turning moments, and those turning moments can be born out of set pieces.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Shelley actually says, imagine how that works in sci-fi. And I think that's really an interesting. I don't know. Are you asking a question because sci-fi is so expensive, or because it's so difficult to have that many set pieces? It is an interesting thing if you look at big giant movies. Like Star Wars movies, they tend to have a lot of set pieces.
Absolutely.
Almost everything.
Because I feel like when you go to watch a big Avengers movie, a big Star Wars movie, and you want a cinematic experience, something that really needs to be done on the big screen, like you want in those kinds of movies, you go there going, oh, that amazing sequence where blank.
But you know what I find, and I think it's really interesting. I actually find that these movies that are the giant tent poles right now, they almost have too many set pieces.
Yeah,
like
I hear that.
I get a bit overwhelmed, and I want some smaller scenes in between. I want those moments that are just the characters.
Yeah.
And some of them do it very well, and some don't. But I think now that I'm looking at the clock on here, that we should come back tomorrow and talk about these major beats that we're talking about. We'll go through our kind of major turning points. And
do you want to watch the movie tonight?
I'll watch The Terminator tonight.
Great. So I'll watch Midnight Run.
Fantastic. And so part of our day tomorrow, we'll be discussing what we may or may not have learned from those movies. And then we'll land on these major turns, and that'll be good progress towards writing a movie with Ben and Jake. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening. We really appreciate it.
If you liked this, and you're on YouTube, please subscribe. And also, if there's someone out there who you feel that this might be beneficial to, please share it with them as well.
Yes.
We want to,
spread the love,
sharing this experience with any young or emerging writers that may find it useful. So
absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.